Well, thanks for coming today. Just wanted to share my life, I guess. My life. What a life I have had. I'm not long for this world. My life has seen so many changes, so many mistakes. And yet, if you think about it, a lot of really great memories. I just want to share them with you. I think that history's going to say a lot of things about me. Maybe some of you will think well of me. I wonder what they'll put on that stone that'll cover my body. Pontius Pilate. Pontius. Yeah, too common of a name. It means nothing without Pilate. It's like me named John. Of course, that's what people call me anyway, Pilate. Armed with a javelin. Something strong. Of course, they might just think of me as bald. But in the end, who cares? I am who I am. I've done what I've done, and I've confessed what I've confessed. So many years ago, when I first served with Sejanus, they made me a military tribune, a defender of the people. Eventually, I got to be named the governor of Judea. Sejanus, an ambitious soldier, a friend, a confidant of Tiberius, the emperor. And for a while, he was the most influential and feared citizen in Rome. It was Sejanus who got me named governor of Judea. I had 5 infantry cohorts under me, a cavalry regiment, absolute authority over my province. That's where those 5,000 men under my command came in handy. Of course, when I think about it, being mentored by Sejanus also got me into a heap of trouble. Sejanus hated the Jews. So I hated the Jews. Now, here's an idea. Just because somebody you know and maybe even respect hates something doesn't mean you have to hate it. So Sejanus hates the Jews and I hate the Jews, and he names me governor of the Jews. I suppose they're going to remember me for 3 incidents. Think about that. A whole man's life boiled down to 3 unfortunate incidents. 3 unfortunate mistakes. When I was first appointed governor, I thought it'd be a good thing to show some strength, especially to the Jews. It's a great idea, I thought. I was just going to send some of my soldiers into Jerusalem bearing the banners with pictures of Caesar, Tiberius. I know that previous Roman practice was to respect Jewish law, but that was the point. The Jews were supposed to respect Roman law. Turns out they didn't. All the people got upset, not just a little bit. It's over a flag. It was weird. It nearly started a riot. So I brought in more soldiers to stop it. And then the people were ready to die over a stupid flag. They forced my hand. I had to relent. First big mistake. A show of force and and strength didn't work. So now I'm on the outs with the Jews, so I had this idea which I thought would win the people over. Jerusalem is always in need of water. So I thought we could build an aqueduct system for the city. Only thing is I didn't have enough money. But I knew that the temple treasury had lots of money. They weren't using it for anything. They needed water. I just took the money. Whew, boy, these people. Another riot. More soldiers. Okay, I told them to use batons. They were just sort of rough them up a little bit, but they used swords. And people died. And there was blood on the temple floor, Jewish blood. They should learn not to riot. You don't mess with Rome. Unfortunately, my friend Sejanus was a little ambitious. Tiberius had basically taken his vacation to that island, and yeah, he was emperor, but kind of emperor in name only. And Sejanus was attempting to supplant Tiberius. And Tiberius' mother-in-law finds out about it, and she tells Tiberius, and Tiberius comes before the Roman Senate, and he calls out Sejanus, and Sejanus gets killed over it, and it used to be okay to hate Jews, but now Tiberius has changed it completely. 180 degrees on this one. And everybody who is a friend of Sejanus is like the guy who was named governor of Judea by Sejanus, that would be me, is suddenly on the outs with the emperor. So I had to be careful. Which led to the worst and the best event of my life. I met him early one morning. It was Passover. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. The Jewish leaders, wanted me to put Jesus to death. They had no real charges to bring against him. But as I said, the climate had changed in Rome. I had to at least listen to the charges. So I interviewed Jesus, and let me tell you something. He was incredible. Unlike anyone I had ever met before. He was confident, unafraid. It was as though he was on a mission. He didn't even seek to defend himself. It seemed like he wanted to switch the attention off of himself and onto me. He wanted me to understand who he was. The Jews charged him with claiming to be the king. So I asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And then he turned that question back. He asked if I wanted to know if it was my question or if it was someone else's. Like I cared if he was the king of the Jews. The Jews were all subject to Rome anyway, which meant they were subject to me. And I asked him, "What did you do to make your own people want to kill you?" Then he goes off about his kingdom. Really. And I'm supposed to understand this. Some Jewish theological thing, not a kingdom of this earth, a kingdom with no armies. So there's no army to fight for him. Boy, was I glad to hear that. I didn't want to have a war on my hands. I was getting somewhere. He was admitting that he was a king. So I said, "So you are a king?" And then he said words which I will never forget. You say correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born. And for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Truth. He spoke of truth. A truth that I wanted to know. But time didn't allow it. I wish I had taken the time to let him know about the truth, but the Jews, they wanted action and they wanted it quick because of their religious holidays. I was in awe of Jesus, so calm as he faced certain death. He wasn't guilty. I knew he wasn't guilty. 3 different times I told the Jews that I found no guilt in Jesus. And I tried to release him. They said that if I released him, they would complain to Tiberius. A complaint to Tiberius. Really, it's kind of like their trump card. It could cause me to lose my status as the king's friend. I would no longer be governor, and the likelihood is they would tie me to Sejanus and I would lose my life. I wonder what others would do in that situation. Do you save your life, your occupation? Is it better for one person to die that's not you than for you to die? I did what most of us would have done. I protected myself. But I had what I thought was a perfect out. I told them I would release a common thug and crucify Jesus. But it wouldn't be my fault. Before that, I even tried to get them to set Jesus free. I said, who do you want me to set free? It's kind of a tradition thing. Clemency. I'll set one of them free. And they chose some Barabbas guy. So I said, fine. Have it your way. But his blood will be on your hands, not mine. I told him I washed my hands of this. And I've been washing my hands ever since. Because just saying that his blood was on their hands didn't take it off of my hands. My wife, she told me to have nothing to do with Jesus. I should have listened to my wife. You should too. Don't listen to my wife. Listen to your wife. But my wife is pretty wise. So listen to your wife. I wish I had listened to her. Turns out, I had someone crucified who shouldn't have died and wouldn't stay dead. I know now that Jesus said he would die and that he would rise again. It took me a long time to believe it, though. The Jews apparently knew about this prediction, and they asked me to put guards around his tomb. Their idea was that the disciples were going to come and steal the body. It's kind of trick the world to say that Jesus is alive. But you know what? No disciples came. But something did happen at that tomb. Because on that Sunday morning, the body was missing. These are Roman guards tasked with one duty: make sure the dead body stays dead. Make sure it's there in the morning. But it wasn't, and they had to lie about it. They started off to say the disciples came to steal the body, like real trustworthy guards, right? These disciples have met them, they're fishermen. These guys aren't exactly tough guys. The guards, they got swords and helmets and all kinds of stuff, and apparently the guards were paid to say that happened. And I just chose to believe it. You've done it sometimes too, I think. You choose to believe the lie because believing a lie is easier than accepting the truth. I began to hear rumors that there were no disciples stealing the body, but rather that he had been risen from the dead, and my wife believed them. She becomes a Christ follower. She accepts his forgiveness. She told me that I could be forgiven. I don't know if you've ever lived with someone who is a Christ follower when you're not a Christ follower, but they can be downright evangelistic. Constantly telling me that I could be forgiven. I am the one who told the soldiers to put the nail in his hands. How can you be forgiven for that? But I was tormented again and again. I washed my hands. I washed them in front of Jews who wanted Jesus dead, and I couldn't stop. I had committed and condemned an innocent man. For a while I shaved my head in an attempt to try to be cleaner. My guilt was eating me alive. I kept hearing Jesus say this: "For this I have been born. I testify of the truth. My kingdom is not of this world." So I visited the grave. It was empty. I talked to the disciples. They had talked to Jesus after I crucified him. And eventually, I came to believe he's alive. He's alive. The man that I condemned to death is alive. I know the truth. Jesus is alive. And by his incredible grace, he looks at me, the man that sent him to his death, and he offers me forgiveness. I asked if he was a king. Well, yes, he is a king. He said this kingdom is not of this world. It isn't, but it is. It turns out that this Jesus has a kingdom which affects me and anyone who becomes a Christ follower. My wife kept calling him a righteous man. I washed my hands of his blood, but it didn't help. And what I found out, it is his blood which set me free. I no longer wash my hands because he has forgiven me. At the end of my life, I wish people would remember me not as the one who had Jesus crucified, but as the one who is forgiven. Who would have thought that someone who started out life hating Jews would come to love the King of the Jews? What a strange journey my faith has taken. I condemned my Savior to death, and He gave me life. My sins are so overwhelming. In comparison, if you would to put on a scale my sins with any other sin, I condemned Him to death, and He gave me life. He rose from the dead. He's alive. I hope that on my gravestone, perhaps someone will put, "No one is excluded from the grace of God." Praise the Lord. My sins, they are many. His mercy is more. Thanks for listening.